Welcome to this video about superpowers for empaths and how to make your life really work for you in a magical way. So you probably know that you are an empath if you're watching this video. And if you're not sure, an empath is a highly sensitive person who also has the ability to feel the moods and the feelings of people who are around them. And so an example is, you're able to walk into a room and there's someone sitting in the room that's really angry or really anxious. And even if they're not saying anything at all, you feel that energy in your own body. And a lot of us as adults didn't realize that we've lived our whole lives like this. And we're finding out there's actually a name for this. There's other people who experience life this way. And that it's actually not super common. A lot of people are just not able to do that. So once we figure out that this is our disposition, instead of trying to compare ourselves to other people and the way that they work, thinking that we are more vulnerable or weak or less than because we're not able to operate the same way, we can see what we've got going on as a highly sensitive, super sensory superpower that just needs to be harnessed. Because as an empath or a highly sensitive person, we're very much in tune. It's like we've got little extra antennas going on compared to a typical person. We're in tune with our environment. We're in tune with nature. We're in tune with our body. We feel things in a really big way. And so if we can do that, we're able to collect data, collect information about what's going on around us and use that to our advantage. But it can also be a really overwhelming experience to be an empath because we are being bombarded with tons of energies, tons of moods and feelings from what's going on in our environment and as well as our own. And so, knowing that that is the case, knowing that that's how our body works, that's not going to change in this life, and just putting a stop to trying to be like everybody else. Like really putting a stop to comparing yourself to the way other people work who don't have this supersensory ability, and deciding that you're going to make your own way. You're going to know yourself, you're going to know your strengths, you're going to know your vulnerabilities as an empath, and you're going to live according to that no matter what anyone tells you. Even a therapist, even a healer, even a doctor, even a teacher or guide of some sort. You have to be okay with your strengths and vulnerabilities that are unique as an empath in order to get through this world. Nothing that even I say really is more important about being an empath than what your unique experience is. Because we're going to share a lot of our strengths and vulnerabilities as an empath, which is nice to be understood by others. But at the end of the day, your vulnerabilities are going to be different than mine. And so getting really clear on knowing yourself and knowing what those things are, and then honoring yourself by living a life that goes according to honoring those strengths and vulnerabilities. That is your real superpower as an empath, more than any other information on the internet, more than any information in this video. And so I would encourage you to really just take a moment and think, okay, what am I really good at? Am I good at noticing the person in the room that is new or maybe feeling left out and making sure that I introduce myself and welcome that person? Am I really vulnerable when it comes to being in the same room as a very angry and dominant person? Does that trigger me a little bit? Okay, so if that's the case for the rest of my life, what is the best way to show up in a room like that? Because there's going to be lots of rooms with lots of people that are dominant and potentially aggressive or angry that you're going to come into contact with for the rest of your life. So just instead of trying to always be frightened or allow yourself to be triggered by the situations that make you feel vulnerable, having a bit of a game plan and knowing that there's always going to be more of those that show up. And so those are just a couple of examples of knowing strengths, knowing vulnerabilities, and then knowing what is my go-to response when I find myself yet again faced with these different energies that I've been faced with my whole life. So another thing, and this is more if you are a woman, I have found that one of the biggest helps for me is to make my menstrual cycle work for me. There's a lot of magic with knowing where you're at in your menstrual cycle and then showing up in the world in a way that you're taking like the wind at your back from where you're at in your cycle. So the 2 weeks that follow when you're finished bleeding, a lot of people call them the spring and the summer of your month. Those 2 weeks are a great time to schedule meetings, to work on projects, to get creative and bring your ideas to the world, to really bring your fire, because we energetically and hormonally have a lot to give during those 2 weeks. Then the 2 weeks that are kind of like the fall winter before you start bleeding again, there's a change in the hormones again, there's a change in our energy. It's a great time to reflect on what's happened in the last 2 weeks, give thanks, and retreat your energy back into yourself, not commit socially so much, and up the self-care. And I even have days blocked off in my calendar so I know where I'm at, and I'm making a lot of commitments and a lot of meetings in those first 2 weeks, and then I'm really keeping more open the next couple of weeks, maybe scheduling myself in for a massage, whatever works for you. So if you're a woman, start working with that and just see what kind of magic takes place, and you'll find that you've got a lot more to give and you've got a lot more creativity coming in those first 2 weeks if you really honor what nature is doing in your body. And as an empath, I think this is even more amplified. You know, people who aren't empaths often make things happen in the world by a lot of grit, a lot of effort, striving, and long hours put into the things that they're doing in order to create success. As empaths, we are a little bit different. That is an option for us, but there are other ways. We tend to be people that are thinkers, dreamers, a little bit, I shouldn't say more, but very much in touch with our inner world, with our ideas and with our hopes and dreams. And so the universe loves to work with hopes and dreams and the positive feelings, the positive sensations that we get when we're feeling into those hopes and dreams. This is one of our superpowers. And so when you are wanting to create something or make a big change in your life, as an empath, the go-to is not necessarily to be plowing through with your grit. You have the option of kind of sitting with and being with your ideas and your dreams, allowing them to percolate, bringing them into your meditations or even your art if you're an artist, creating vision boards. That's one of my favorite things. They work really well. And then, because we're such big feelers, the positive feelings and the inspiration that we're experiencing when we're kind of focusing on designing and creating our plans in our mind, that is sending a powerful message out to the universe to come alongside us and pave the way for those things to happen in reality. Now, this works for anybody, but I would say that as an empath, because our feelings are so powerful, our nervous systems are so finely tuned, that sometimes our feelings can be different in quality or bigger than a typical person. And so the universe works with our intentions and our positive feelings to bring things into reality. So you've kind of got an extra layer of magic to work with if you want to. And so when you're dreaming up what you want to do next, where you want to go, anything really, instead of like just jumping in and putting a lot of effort in and potentially getting frustrated, spending that time imagining, dreaming, and designing these things in your head without an attachment to a specific structured outcome, and just being with those ideas for a while. And then even just kind of letting them go and see what happens. Or making one move towards that thing. It might be like a phone call or an email or a reservation or just something that's associated with that thing that you want to do. And then stepping back. And allowing the breadcrumbs, allowing the piece by piece to show up. And I can't tell you how many times that's worked for me in my life. And friends or family members were like, I didn't even know you were working on that. Where did that come from? And I can honestly give the thanks to the divine, because it just took a little bit of dreaming and a couple of moves on my part, and then a letting go and a surrender. And it's amazing how the right people and the right opportunities will fall in place when we do surrender to the process. And so, as an empath, because you are a big feeler and a big dreamer, this can really work for you. And so, taking your energy back from comparing how you create, comparing that with the way other people do it, and be like, I'm going to go my way. I don't need to plow through and wear myself thin to the bone in order to make things happen. I can go with the energy of the universe and use my feelings and my imagination to make things happen. As empaths, a lot of our energy naturally goes into scanning our environment. Scanning our environment for threats, scanning our environment to know the energy and the mood of the other people that are in a room, sensing if somebody is a little bit combative or argumentative. Because when we grew up, we probably had a caregiver that was very dominant, and their mood and their energy really filled the environment and caused us to have to be very aware of that person's mood and how saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing could put us in harm's way somehow. And that is part of why empaths are empaths, because we have developed our nervous system at a young age to be able to sense these kinds of things. And so even though it's been a rough go for a lot of us, knowing that, okay, I'm an adult now, and naturally I am wired to be spending quite a bit of my energy and focus just with awareness of the people and the environment around me. A lot of my day involves a bit of that. We don't need to fight that. We don't need to stop that. We just need to accept that that's where a big chunk of our energy goes. And so in response to that is our makeup, then we can be really strategic on which parts of our day, how much of our day is with other people. And I don't know about you, but one thing that has been real for me is quality over quantity. Quality over quantity. A lot of people who are not empaths, they really thrive on quantity time with others. There are people that actually really struggle to be alone at all. They really like to be talking a lot, in conversation, and just kind of like in the proximity of other people. And that can be nice, but it can also be draining, because if we're always around other people, we're always aware and kind of like scanning, and we can get depleted and drained. And so switching up very intentionally how you spend time with other people, choosing to spend the majority of your other people time with people that will meet you halfway, that aren't going to suck the life and energy out of you. And that way, even though it might be potentially draining or stressful to be with another person, at least you're not pouring into listening to one other person drone on and talk constantly. At least you're not showing up and like helping another person who can help themselves and then leaving super depleted. So try and spend your quality time with people who are meeting you halfway. And when you are well aware of the people in your life that are a bit more of a energy sucker, a little bit more of an energy vampire, really intentionally limiting your time with those people, because that can be really draining and that precious energy that you have as an empath, really, you deserve to have that for yourself or to share that with people that are reciprocal, situations that are more reciprocal. And no, not everybody is going to be reciprocal. You know, sometimes you're helping out somebody who's sick or who has an addiction or a mental health problem or something like that. Those people aren't always able to give back to you. But being very strategic on just how much time and what you're able to commit to those people, letting them know what those boundaries are. And, you know, they're probably going to be grateful in their own way for however you are able to show up for them. So spending your quality time, most of your time, with others who will meet you halfway. And then when you're alone, if you're somebody who can feel lonely, can struggle with isolation when you're apart from people, instead of seeing that as there's something wrong with me, I don't have that many people in my life that are good, I'm sitting here alone again, seeing it as a time where you're actually giving to yourself, where you're actually filling your own cup, where you're listening to music that you want to listen to, that you've got essential oil in the diffuser that you love, that makes you feel good, that you're eating foods that nourish you. And then going back into your quality time with other people from a place where you ordered your own environment. You chose what you prefer, what makes you feel amazing. What makes you feel amazing is going to be what things that are different that makes me feel amazing. So that's part of knowing ourselves. And then when we know, we can do. Quality time over quantity time. And you're going to feel a lot more full a lot of the time. It's very easy to do. It just requires a little bit of planning and a little bit of forward thinking. Sometimes as an empath, we have connections with friends or acquaintances, and we don't always notice when something feels off. We don't always notice the red flags. Why is this? Because early in life, many of us were forced to be in the presence of a dominant figure and accept whatever was going on with them, accept whatever their mood was, accept whatever fallout came from the moods and feelings of that dominant caregiver. And we had no way out. We didn't even imagine necessarily a way out because we knew that this was our situation. This is our environment. This is our home life. When we get older, this can follow us. So even though we have a choice and we can choose where we want to spend our time and with who, we may not have adjusted to the fact that we can choose. We might not notice that there are dominant people in our life that like to exert control, that like to give unsolicited advice, that like to dominate the conversation, that want you to listen to them, but they're not willing to listen to you or maybe even capable. Those are just a few things. We feel almost more comfortable when we're around people like that at the beginning, especially of our healing journey, because it's familiar. We know how to navigate people like that. We know how to appease them. We know how to be in their presence and listen to them, even if we're not that interested. We're quite kind to people like that. And if that is you, and you're just starting to notice that you've got a lot of people like this in your life, and you'd rather there to be less of this type of interaction, less quantity of these types of people. It's time to get really honest with ourselves, because we might tell ourselves that, you know, I'm a patient person, I'm a loving person, I'm able to tolerate these types of people really well because I'm a good individual. That's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. Often, there's a lot of truth in the idea that we're actually just used to people like that. We're just accustomed to going above and beyond constantly for people who are not willing to do that for us. And we're not so used to people that will meet us halfway. We're not so used to healthy people. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. It doesn't mean that we're unhealthy. It just means we're coming into awareness that this is a real thing. And that we've spent a lot of our life pouring into other people that are not willing to pour into us. And if you look back, what has been the result of that? Have those people changed? Have those people healed as a result of you showing up constantly and listening constantly to their problems and issues? Or have they just taken advantage of your kind and gentle nature and left you depleted? So it's really important to be honest with yourself about the role that these people are playing in your life. Do you need to have these types of people around in order to feel valuable, to feel like you're doing something good for the world? You don't have to. You don't have to fill your life with people that are just takers in order to experience value. There's a lot of people right now that are waking up to the fact that they are surrounded by individuals like this. And it can be a little bit scary to think of making changes and reducing the quantity of time that you spend with people like this, because those people have a lot of expectations based on how we have been showing up for them over the years. And so we're not always doing this out of a pure love. Often we're doing this because we're just used to it. And as a kid, we had to do this service in one way or another because we were surrounded by one or more people that were very demanding. And so as an empath that is kind of collecting their superpowers, I would encourage you to slowly and gently withdraw bits of time, bits of focus, bits of overgiving to these types of people if you have them in your life. Often, if you make sudden and big changes in the boundaries that you have with them, that can cause them to be very offended and irritated and even accuse you of being harsh. So you're welcome to make those big changes in boundaries. I would say, if you can, go for it. But often it's a little bit easier to integrate these changes by slowly withdrawing focus, by not always saying yes, by having time limits for conversations, by waiting longer before responding to text messages from these types of people. And I promise you that it's not always going to be this hard. My life, for sure, especially in my 20s, was very much full of dominant people who were energy vampires, and I found my value in overgiving, over-listening, and overcompensating for these types of people. And now there's nobody like that in my life. And when I do come across them, there's a lot of space between us, and my time is limited in quantity. When we change our vibration, when we change where we're putting our focus, the universe gives us more of that. The universe gives us more of that. And so the people that are meeting you halfway, that are coming 50%, and there's a bit more of a give-take relationship and there's a receiving going on, I would encourage you to put more of your energy and focus and thoughts into those relationships as you slowly withdraw focus from the other ones. And you will find, I promise you, if you keep at it, you will find that you wake up one day and there's really no energy vampires left in your life because they've realized that you are no longer a source of food. They're off to find somebody else that will show up the way that you used to show up. And your life will be filled with plenty more people that are meeting you halfway. It is a process and it does take time, but even for people like us who have been empaths and been in the presence of dominant energy vampires our whole life, we can make these switches just by where we're putting our energy and focus. And so those are a few ways that you can become a super empath. And there are plenty more, but this is just a start. And again, I just want to say that it can be a real gift. It can be a real gift because as we clean up our lives and change the way that we are working with energy and don't compare ourselves and try and be like people who aren't empaths, that's healing. That's cleansing and purging who we are not and who we do not need to be, and the energies that are not necessary to have closely in our life. And when we do that, one gift that will come is our intuition will go up. Our intuition will become stronger. I promise you, this is part of the process. Why is that? Because when we are working with energy in a way that we're limiting energy vampires, dominant people, and situations that are not in alignment with us, when we're starting to notice what those are and limit them, then when a person or a situation does crop up that is out of alignment, it's going to feel very uncomfortable. It's going to feel not harmonious. It's going to feel intrusive because you've gotten yourself to a place where you're more in the flow of natural law, universal law. You're more in reciprocal relationships. So a situation or a relationship that is not, it's going to feel very, very foreign. And you're going to be immediately aware with your intuition that something is off here. Not bad, not good. Something is just out of alignment with who you are becoming and who you have become. And you'll see these things coming from a mile away. Whereas before, you didn't notice until after. You didn't notice until after you had given a lot of time and effort and focus to something that was a bit more taking and life-sucking out of you. So that's where you're going. That's where we're all going together. If you have any other tips on managing energy in a magical way as an empath, please drop them in the comments. And we can all learn from each other's experiences going through life as a highly sensitive person and an empath. It really is a gift once we can harness it. And there are many of us waking up to the fact that this is our disposition. Instead of trying to change it and fight it, we're here to harness it and navigate it. So thank you. Please like and comment if you like this video, and journey well.